I filmed this video 4 times and the audio has not worked any of the times, so we're just gonna go with crappy phone audio. Hi everyone, welcome to my booktube channel. I'm Siwan and I love to read. Today I'm going to be filming my May reading wrap-up. So this is brief and terrible reviews of books I read in May, and I read 14 of them. So without further ado, let's dive in. The first book that I read is This Winter by Alice Oseman. This is a little novella. It's part of the Heartstopper universe, which is a comic, and I haven't read the comic yet, but it's on my TBR for June. This is a fun little novella. It's a solid, like, 3-perspective book about family dynamics around Christmas time, and I thought it was a fun little read. It kind of got me out of a reading slump because it's so short and you get the satisfaction of like finishing a book. Also, the cover's really cute and there are little illustrations in it, and I think that's so cute. 3 stars. Next, I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This book is basically the love hypothesis, except if the FMC were annoying. However, overall, still a fun read, 3.5. Next, I read some ARCs, and you can see my full review video for more details about these books, but I read Lady of Steel and Straw by Erica Ivy Rogers. This is a Three Musketeers retelling set in fantasy France, and I expected it to be really fun, but I couldn't get into it. I hated the characters. I didn't care about the plot. I just didn't like anything really about this book, and I skimmed to get through it. So, 2 stars. The next book was If I Stopped Haunting You by Colby Wilkins. This book was even worse, and I hope the FMC burns in hell. 1 star. Next, I read Finding Mr. Right by Kelly Armstrong. I know Armstrong from her paranormal YA books that I read as a child. I believe that The Gathering, The Summoning, and The Reckoning are the trilogy that I read. But this, as far as I know, is her first attempt into romance, and I would say it was a very successful attempt. I really enjoyed this. It's about an author who publishes her book under a male pseudonym, and she hires an actor to play the author. At first it's just to take photos for the back cover, for the author photo, and then she hires him to do a few interviews, and then the book takes off, so there's a press tour, and of course along the way they fall in love. So I really enjoyed this, and I rated it 4 stars. Next, I read Annie LeBlanc Is Not Dead Yet by Molly Morris. This is about this town where every 10 years the town resurrects a person for 1 month. So Annie LeBlanc gets resurrected for 1 month, and it's about her and her friendship with these 2 other girls, and how the dynamic between each of them changes. And I really enjoyed this book. There are a few things that I thought were weird or like just undeveloped, but for the most part I really enjoyed it, so I rated it 4 stars. Next, I read Soul of Light and Thunder by Ariane Nix. This author reached out to me on Instagram and asked me to read and review her book, so I did. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and that's where I read it. This is a solid fantasy. I think it would be especially good for people who are just dipping their toes into fantasy, because the world building is very, very minimal. There's really isn't any. It's just kind of like, it's the real world, and then magic exists. It's not like a big high fantasy with a ton of lore or anything like that. It's a little underdeveloped, partly in the world building and partly just like there's like kind of an insta-love thing between these 2 characters that I didn't really like. I'm just not into insta-love, and like it felt a little rushed. Everything was a little bit, I don't know, everything was just a little underdeveloped. But I still had a good time, and that ending is fantastic, and I'm reading the second one now because like I had to know what happened. So I rated this 3 stars. It's about a girl named Sophie, and she has inherited this half compact mirror from her deceased aunt, and she's told to like guard it with her life. And she doesn't know that it's actually half of a very powerful magic object that will bestow power to anyone who uses it. And it's about her finding this magical world and the characters that she meets in it, because there are a lot of unsavory characters who are willing to do unsavory things to get this half compact mirror from her. So yeah, I rated it 3 stars. I enjoyed it, and I'm reading the second one. The next book that I read in May was Emily Henry's Happy Place. This is my first Emily Henry book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I rated it 5 stars, which is really rare for a romance for me, but I just loved it. I thought it was so good, and the last 50 pages made me sob, and I don't cry at books really, so that says something. But like the relationships between the characters and the way it all comes together was just so heartwarming and sweet, and I cried. Happy Place is a second chance romance about these 2 characters who are broken up, but their friends don't know it, so when they go on friends vacation, they have to pretend that they're still together. There's a huge emphasis on the found family aspect. All the characters are really, really fleshed out. They're like, the friends don't just feel like side characters who don't really matter. Friends are very integral to the core of the story, and I thought it was a really uplifting, heartwarming book, and I recommend it to my mom who's going through a hard time as just like a happy, heartwarming book that's gonna like fill you with joy at the way these characters come together. So 5 stars. Next, I read Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is part of the Chestnut Springs series. And I can't explain why, but Sloane and Jasper are now my favorite characters, or my favorite couple out of the Chestnut Springs series. I just love them. I don't know why, but they're my favorite now. 4 stars. Next, I read a thriller called First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is about a con artist. Basically what she does is she gets the job from her boss, she gets a new identity, she goes in, she gets whatever they need or whatever they want from this person, and she gets out. I read some reviews saying that this was hard to follow, but I think it might just be that dual timelines aren't for those people, because for me, this was very easy to follow. It flashes back and forth between present day and like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6, and it goes pretty much in chronological order like that. And although each flashback she has a new identity because she's on a different job, I still didn't find it hard to follow because it stays in first person narrative. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I read it in 1 sitting, and I loved the twist at the end. 4 stars. Then I read It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. This was okay. Blue is quotes that resonated with me that I thought were really good, so I do have a few of those in there. Like, it had its moments. It's about a boy who is suffering from depression, and he checks himself into the psych ward because he's having suicidal thoughts. And it's about the people that he meets there and how he heals. It didn't resonate with my experience. I mean, like, some of the aspects of like his depression and the way he thinks like resonated with me, and those are the quotes that I tabbed. But like the overall story and the experience just didn't resonate with me. I mean, like, he goes into the psych ward, he's depressed and suicidal, he realizes that he needs to change schools, and he rediscovers his love of art, and then he's cured. And like, as someone who has struggled with like chronic severe depression that like meds don't touch, therapy has only helped so much, like, and like these waves of depressive episodes that just are like seemingly incurable, like that just doesn't resonate with me. So it was a 3-star read. It had its moments. It's a good enough book. One thing I should mention is there's a trans character in here who is horribly, horribly, horribly represented. This was written back in 2006, and the representation is just, it's just bad. It made me cringe so hard. But yeah, it's very much of its time. That's one thing to be aware of going into this book. Okay, next I read The Shepherd King duology, and that's One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. And these books were so good. Oh my gosh. It's like the first book is incredible, impeccable, spectacular, 5 stars, and then the second book is better. It's about this kingdom where the only legal magic comes from these cards, and each card has a different power and a different cost that to grant the user. And illegal magic comes from this infection where children become infected, and then they come out with magical powers, and infected children are meant to be taken up to the castle and executed. Elspeth, however, was infected as a child, and she has been hiding her magic for years. She claims to be the only person who survived the infection and came out fine, but she actually lives with this dark, mysterious, monstrous voice in her head, who she refers to as the Nightmare. And the Nightmare also grants her the power to see the color of cards. So if there's a card in someone's pocket, it will glow a certain color to her. She'll be able to see that and know what kind of card it is based on what color it's glowing. So she has this monster in her head. She can see the cards, and she is discovered by this group of rebels who wants to unite the deck and lift, because it's the only way to cure the infection and lift this curse. So she gets roped into their scheme of finding all the cards and uniting the deck. Everything, the world building, the characters, the romance, like everything is perfection in this duology. So I highly, highly, highly recommend. So lastly, I read The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. I had fun with this book. I rated it 4 stars. No complaints, really. It's about this woman who goes in and becomes the housemaid. And the wife is vile, absolutely like off her rocker, and she falls in love with the husband, and the whole thing unfolds from there. Things are like not quite as they seem because it's a thriller. And yeah, I had fun with this book. I thought it was engaging. I read it again in one sitting. It's been on my TBR for a while, and I'm glad I read it. It was worth my time, but I probably won't read the rest of them because it just wasn't, there was nothing earth-shattering about it to me. So 4 stars. So that is it for my brief and terrible reviews of books I read in May. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you read in May in the comments. If you're new here, like and subscribe. If you're returning, thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.